There is not a lot more to be said about the statement of financial activity, but there are a few points. So they're completely unrelated, three or four topics that are just things to point out. Um, Specific donations can include cash donations as well. It can also include pledges or recorded as donations because of accrual accounting we were talking about last time. And also, it can include in kind donations. So, if someone donates a truck to your union, then that would be an in kind donation. The next topic is net exchange gain or loss. The gains and the losses from exchanges are shown on this line. So sometimes you will see a positive number. This would mean that this was a gain. You're better off by 3,297,000 as your from your exchange gains. This is from a currency exchange gains. And sometimes you'll see this negative on the same row. And the idea is that we keep the positive and the negatives so it's not jumping all over the place. So sometimes someone might say, "Oh, what shouldn't it belong down here?" Well, no, we're going to keep the gains and losses on one row. So we have our operating activity coming down. We have our appropriations in and out happening here. We have our budget comparison. We want to make sure that we have apples to apples budget comparison. If your budget needs to include out, in order to properly work here, your budget needs to include the budget for allocated, because when you spend allocated, it will show up here as expenses. And so your budget needs to make sure to include it. It's sometimes overlooked when you're coming up with the figures that belong on the budget column. The capital activity has to do with our buildings. Okay, so here we've received money for buildings. We had other capital income. This would be could include donations toward our building fund. Okay, so remember these were operational donations up here under operation activity. But if someone donated money toward our new building, it gets shown down here as in capital income. And here we have given out some money to help other people build buildings, okay? And we have a little bit of exchange gain loss. And also, if we purchased, it doesn't show up here, but if we had purchased a building or purchased equipment, it would be a reduction here. Um, uh, or if we had sold a building, it could be an increase here. And then the final thing, next to final thing I want to show you is transfers between funds. This row right here is where this is illustrating taking money from our operating fund and squirreling it away in our plant fund. So this looks like either um, we're trying to save toward a capital purchase, like we're saving toward building a new building, or this could just simply mean we have purchased some assets. And so we've given the money to buy to have the assets. And so now the net asset, the money is not over here in operating anymore. It's over here as an asset. And so this is our deficit. This shows a deficit spending. We spent more than we brought in by that amount, and this shows a surplus. Okay. We take it and add to it what we had at the beginning, and we get a new net assets for the end of the year. Well, that finishes our video on the statement of financial activity. I We're now ready to move into the next one, which was a statement on net assets. The statement on net assets, the way that Adventists prepare them is sort of unique in that we are creating, like I explained earlier, pots of resources to be used on certain projects and certain initiatives and for certain reasons. And one of the biggest misunderstandings that church leaders have on these pots is that they think that they are pots of money there to be spent. Well, that's not exactly right. And so you want to make sure that you watch those videos and try to get a handle on exactly what does the statement of net assets show and how much is there for me to use on certain initiatives, and how do I assess the quality of that statement? You know, you see a pot that's labeled Igbo of Southeast Nigeria 10,000. Well, what does that really mean? Do I have that much money for the evangelizing the Igbo of Southeast Nigeria, or do I? Or what does it? How does that really stand? And so that's what we try to look at in the next video. That's the statement of net assets, and I appreciate you watching these videos. I hope they are helping.